Beholders are not born, they are dreamed. When an eye-tyrant sleeps, reality bends around its mind, warps, breaks. And sometimes, something claws through, something new, something hungry, and it always wakes angry. I know this because I watched it happen. I served a beholder for 11 years. Its property, its tool, its entertainment. You can call me Aldrich. That's not my real name. My real name sits in my master's files, somewhere beneath the earth, and I don't speak it anymore. But Aldrich will do. The creature came through the cellar floor. The Moonstone Archive had stood for 300 years. Its wards had never been breached. I cataloged planar theory in the basement, surrounded by books about things that didn't belong in our reality. I never thought one would come for me. 3 years, my master had been tunneling, patient, calculating. It had detected magical emanations from our collection. It wanted our knowledge. It wanted servants to organize that knowledge. I remember the moment I first saw it. A sphere of flesh, 8 feet across. Leathery hide the color of bruised plums. A central eye dominated its front, larger than my head, with a pupil that drank light itself. But the smaller eyes, 10 of them, each on a writhing stalk, each twisting independently, each watching a different direction, each watching me. I don't remember screaming. I remember my throat being raw afterward. It smelled like a lightning strike. Ozone and something older, something that didn't belong in air that humans breathe. And its voice, I expected thunder. Alien harmonics, something monstrous. It sounded like a disappointed scholar, almost bored. "You will organize my library," it said. "You will not make errors. You will not attempt escape. You will serve until you are no longer useful." It didn't threaten consequences. It didn't need to. The lair defied geometry. My master had carved it over centuries, and the tunnels didn't follow rules that human architects would recognize. Corridors curved upward and somehow looped back. Rooms sat at angles that made my eyes ache. Gravity worked differently in certain chambers. I learned to crawl along walls that my master treated as floors. It made sense eventually. Beholders float. They don't need stairs. They don't need level ground. They carve their homes for creatures that drift through space, like fish through water. Humans were an afterthought, an inconvenience. I learned to navigate by counting turns and memorizing the temperature changes between chambers. The treasure vault was always cold. The library was warm and dry. The central chamber where my master rested smelled of copper and static. 17 other servants lived in that lair when I arrived. By my 3rd year, only 4 remained. We didn't speak to each other. Speaking might be heard. Heard meant noticed. Noticed meant judged. And judgment from an eye-tyrant was always fatal. I remember their faces, though. The ones who didn't survive. There was an elven woman who cataloged gemstones. She made the mistake of arranging sapphires by size instead of by magical resonance. My master noticed 3 weeks later. She didn't survive the correction. A dwarf who maintained the trap mechanisms. 40 years of service, they said. Loyal, precise. One day a pressure plate failed to trigger during an intrusion. The intruder died anyway. My master has redundancies for its redundancies. But the dwarf had made an error. Errors are not tolerated. A young human who cleaned, just cleaned. Swept floors, polished metal, removed dust from ancient texts. He hummed while he worked. A tune from his childhood, probably. Something that reminded him of before. My master heard him humming on his 18th day. It decided the noise was a pattern. Patterns could be codes. Codes could be communication with enemies. The boy was 14 years old. I learned to work in silence after that. Perfect, absolute silence. Even my breathing became something I controlled, shallow, measured, inaudible. You learn to disappear when the alternative is disintegration. I learned what perfection means to a beholder on my 9th day. My master examined a tapestry. Ancient, valuable, an artist's interpretation of a beholder from centuries past. The eye stalks were wrong, too symmetrical, the central eye too small. My master stared at that tapestry for 6 hours. Then it disintegrated the fabric, the wall behind it. And the slave who had hung it there 3 years before, I arrived. Lies, it said, intolerable lies. I never touched anything in that lair without permission again. My master killed 17 other beholders during my years of service. I never understood why until I watched one of those kills. When rival beholders appeared, my master's eye stalks would snap to attention. All 10, perfectly synchronized, its body would rotate, orienting its central eye away to keep its rays active. Then it would fire, every stalk at once. No warning, no words. The battles never lasted more than 10 seconds. I asked it once, weighing every word, why it destroyed its own kind so completely. It turned 3 eye stalks towards me. The rest kept scanning, always scanning. They are not my kind, it said. There is only one of my kind. There is only me. Everything else is error. I thought about that for years afterward, tried to understand it. Every beholder believes it is the perfect form, the ideal, the template from which all others deviate. When 2 beholders meet, each sees the other as a flawed copy, a mockery, an insult to existence itself. They don't fight for territory. They don't fight for resources. They fight because the other one exists, and existence, for something imperfect, is intolerable. I watched my master study the corpses of rivals it had killed, floating above them for hours, examining every detail, comparing eye stalk arrangements, measuring hide thickness, cataloging the differences. Each examination ended the same way. Wrong, it would say. All wrong. And then it would order me to dispose of the remains. I think, in some twisted way, it was looking for validation, hoping that one day it would find a rival that was truly identical, proof that its own form was the correct one. But it never did. Every rival was different. Every kill was confirmation that the universe was full of errors, and my master was alone in its perfection. I wonder sometimes if that loneliness drove it mad, or if it was born mad, or if madness and perfection are simply the same thing when you're a beholder. I witnessed a birth once. My master rested in its central chamber. 6 eye stalks had gone still. The other 4 kept sweeping the room, slow, mechanical. Even at rest, it watched. I heard a sound like ripping cloth. The air split apart. And suddenly there were 2 of them. The newcomer hung where nothing had been. Its eye stalks curved differently. Its hide was a shade darker. Not perfect. My master didn't hesitate. The battle lasted 9 seconds. 9 seconds of eye rays crossing the chamber. Disintegration beams burning through stone. Death rays splitting the air. The walls themselves melting and reforming under the onslaught. When it ended, the newcomer was ash. 3 of my master's eye stalks hung limp and bleeding. It turned its central eye toward me. "Clean this," it said. I got the brush. I didn't ask questions. 3 hours later, my master was resting again. 6 eye stalks still, 4 sweeping. As if nothing had happened, as if nothing ever could. I learned later that this is how all beholders reproduce. They dream of themselves, or of other beholders they've encountered, and reality tears open to accommodate the vision. The dreamer and the dreamed almost always fight to the death. No courtship, no mating, No generation of offspring through union. Just narcissism so powerful, it warps the fabric of reality. Just self-obsession so complete that it spawns new life. And then immediate violence, because that new life is imperfect. The universe should be grateful for this. If beholders could tolerate each other, if they could cooperate the way mind flayers do, nothing would stop them. They would conquer everything, but they can't. Their certainty of their own perfection makes alliance impossible. Their greatest strength is also their saving flaw. The charm ray took 3 years of my life. Every morning that eye would find me. Every morning the warmth would return. 3 years where I woke grateful to serve, where I smiled while organizing its hoard, where I thanked it, for allowing me to exist in its presence. I loved the thing that owned me. I loved it completely. The charm broke on an ordinary Tuesday. No warning, no dramatic moment. My master simply forgot to renew it, distracted by some new acquisition, some rivals' movements, some calculation I wasn't privy to. I woke up, and the warmth wasn't there. And I remembered everything, every smile, every moment of false joy. Every time I had looked upon that floating nightmare and felt warmth. I vomited for 6 hours, not from sickness, from the memory of what I had been. The other servants found me in the corridor afterward. They didn't ask what happened. They knew. 2 of them had the same hollow look in their eyes, the look of people who remembered loving their captor. We never spoke of it, but I noticed my master watching me more closely after that. 3 eye stalks instead of 1. Longer pauses when I entered a room. It knew the charm had broken. It chose not to renew it. I still don't know why. The central eye was the worst, not because of what it did, but because of what it prevented. When my master looked at you directly, with that great unblinking eye, magic died. Spells unraveled mid-casting, enchantments flickered and failed. Magical items became ordinary metal and wood. I watched a wizard try to fight my master once. Powerful woman, fire in her hands, lightning on her tongue. She'd killed dragons, they said, toppled kingdoms. My master turned its central eye toward her. The fire went out, the lightning grounded. Her protective wards dissolved like morning frost. She stood there in ordinary robes, suddenly mortal, suddenly fragile, as 10 eye stalks swiveled to face her. She didn't even have time to scream. The anti-magic cone stretched 150 feet. Within that cone, nothing magical functioned. Nothing. My master would rotate its body constantly during combat, suppressing spellcasters with its central eye, while its stalks fired at everyone else. It couldn't use its own eye rays within the cone, of course. The anti-magic affected its own powers, too. But it didn't need to. Once the magic was gone, once the wizard was just a woman in cloth, the other stalks had plenty of angles to work with. I cleaned up what was left of her, too. There was surprisingly little. The petrification ray caught a drow assassin mid-leap, turned him to stone in the air. My master kept the statue there for 3 days, a warning to others. Then it used the telekinetic ray to hurl him into a pit. He shattered on the stones below. I found a finger later, perfectly preserved, still warm. The fear ray hit a dwarf warrior once. I'd seen him fight. Steady hands, dead eyes, the kind of soldier who'd killed more things than he could count. After the ray touched him, he dropped his axe, sat down in the middle of the corridor, started rocking back and forth. When my master floated past, the dwarf tried to crawl into a corner. He was making sounds, not words, just sounds. I never saw what happened to him after that. The enervation ray drained life itself. I watched a young soldier age 40 years in seconds. His hair went white, his skin sagged and spotted. He died of old age before he hit the ground. He'd been 23. The sleep ray seemed almost merciful by comparison. It dropped victims instantly, one moment fighting. The next crumpled on the ground, breathing slow and deep. But my master never used it mercifully. I watched it put a paladin to sleep mid-charge. Holy warrior, silver armor, conviction burning in his eyes. He collapsed 3 feet from my master's maw. My master floated there, watching him sleep, watching him breathe, for almost an hour. Then it woke him up, just long enough for him to see where he was, to see the eye stalks aimed at his face, to understand what was about to happen. Then the death ray. My master could have killed him in his sleep. Quickly, painlessly. It chose not to. Beholders don't just want you dead. They want you to know you're dying. They want you to understand, in your final moments, that you never had a chance, that your struggle was meaningless, that they were always, always in control. The slowing ray. I watched friends try to rescue me once. Their movements turned to crawls. Seconds stretched into hours. They saw death rays gathering in the remaining stalks. They couldn't move fast enough to dodge. I won't describe what the death ray does. I've seen it. I've cleaned what it leaves behind. Some things don't deserve words. My master never spoke of the Great Mother, but I found references in its collection, fragments, warnings, the scrawled notes of scholars who had glimpsed something vast. One fragment described a single eye the size of a castle gate. Another mentioned eggs that hatched into nightmares. A third, written in a hand that grew more erratic with every line, described a sound, not a voice, not a roar, something deeper, something that vibrated in the bones and made the reader question whether they had ever truly been alone. The writer stopped mid-sentence. The page was stained with something brown. I found a sketch once, someone's attempt to draw what they'd seen. The charcoal lines became erratic halfway through, shaking. The last mark on the page looked like it had been made by someone running. Some say the Great Mother dreamed the first beholders into existence. Others say she was the first, and all others are her degraded descendants, copies of copies, each one slightly more wrong than the last. She drifts through the dark places between planes, they say, spawning, devouring. Even her own children aren't safe from her hunger, perhaps especially her own children. I found one account that claimed she had birthed an entire hive, dozens of beholders all at once, only to consume them within hours, testing them maybe, finding them wanting. Or perhaps she simply forgot they were hers. Beholder minds don't work like ours. I don't know which version my master believed, but sometimes, in its quieter moments, I would catch it drifting lower, closer to the ground. Eye stalks drooping, central eye unfocused. I never asked what it was thinking. Some questions are safer left unspoken. Not all dreams produce perfection. Sometimes a beholder rests while wounded, feverish, its mind twisted by pain and poison. What emerges from those dreams is wrong. Death kisses. They look like beholders, but the eye stalks end in mouths, fanged, gaping, hungry. They don't cast rays, they feed. My master killed one during my 7th year, ambushed it in a collapsed tunnel, destroyed it before it could bite. After the disintegration ray reduced it to ash, my master hovered over the remains for a long time. Its eye stalks weren't scanning, they were still, focused on what was left. It made a sound, low, brief, almost like a sigh. I'd never heard it make that sound before. I never heard it again. Corruption, it said. Proof that dreams can fail. Proof that perfection is rare. It hovered over that ash for a long time. My master maintained 17 different escape routes from its lair, each one trapped differently, each one monitored constantly, each one designed to kill any pursuer while allowing my master to flee. It never used any of them, but it spent hours every day checking, adjusting, rechecking. One night I made a mistake. My master was resting. I was organizing texts in the adjoining chamber. I coughed, just once. Quiet, brief. Within 3 seconds, 6 eye rays were aimed at my chest. Within 5 seconds, 3 corridors had sealed and 2 trap sequences had activated. Because I coughed. "Explain," my master said. My throat had closed. My heart tried to tear through my ribs. But I forced myself to speak. "Dust," I whispered. "Dust in my throat." It watched me for 4 hours after that. I stood like stone. I barely breathed. I didn't blink because blinking might be suspicious. I felt my legs go numb, felt my vision blur. I didn't move. Eventually, it looked away. "Dust," it said. "See that it doesn't happen again." I never coughed in that lair again, not once in 8 more years. The lair changed while I served there, not renovations, not expansion. The walls themselves shifted. Doors appeared where none had been. Tunnels sealed themselves overnight. This is what beholders do to their homes. Their presence warps reality around them. The lair becomes an extension of their paranoid minds, reshaping itself to match their fears and desires. I learned to check every corridor before walking through it. Some mornings the path to the library was different. Some nights, the floor became a wall. The lair was alive, in a sense, alive with my master's madness. I think that's why beholders can't live together. Their realities would collide. Their lairs would tear each other apart. Each one warps the world to fit its own perfect vision, and no 2 visions can coexist. I escaped on the 4017th day of my captivity. 3 years of planning, 3 years of patience, 3 years of pretending. The first year was reconnaissance. I mapped the blind spots, the rare angles where no eye stalk could see. They shifted constantly as my master moved, but patterns emerged. Brief windows, momentary shadows. I memorized them all. The second year was, acquisition. The scroll of teleportation was the hardest part. My master collected such things, hoarded them like a dragon hoards gold. But it also cataloged them, obsessively. Every item documented, every location recorded. I found a scroll that had been misfiled, placed in the wrong section by a servant who was killed shortly after. My master's own paranoid record-keeping had created a gap, one scroll that existed but wasn't where the record said it should be. I moved it, inch by inch, over 8 months, never carrying it, that would be noticed, just shifting it, a shelf at a time, until it reached a section my master rarely visited. Then I hollowed out a book, ancient text on elemental theory, dense, boring, exactly the kind of thing my master would never reread. The scroll went inside. I didn't touch it again for 6 months. In case my master had noticed, in case this was a test. The third year was waiting, finding the right moment, the right alignment of rest cycles and patrol patterns and corridor configurations. There were 4 times I almost ran. The first, I lost my nerve. Stood in the corridor, scroll in hand, and couldn't make my legs move. The second, my master's rest cycle shifted unexpectedly. I made it halfway to my hiding spot before an eye stalk swept toward me. I pretended to be checking texts. My heart didn't slow down for 3 hours. The third, another servant was executed that same day. The lair was on high alert. Every eye stalk active, every corridor watched. The fourth time, I ran. I mapped the blind spots, memorized the patrol patterns. identified the one corridor my master checked only once per day, during its rest period when its attention divided. I acquired a scroll of teleportation, hidden in a hollowed-out book. Placed in a section of the library my master rarely visited. It trusted its library. It didn't trust me, but it didn't distrust me enough. The night I ran, I waited until the rest period, until the chamber fell quiet, until 6 of the eye stalks had gone still. I moved through the blind spot corridor, reached the alcove where I'd hidden the scroll. My hands shook so badly I could barely read the words. When I finally spoke the incantation, I tasted copper. Fear. My own blood where I'd bitten through my tongue. And as reality folded around me, I saw my master's central eye turn, saw the anti-magic cone sweep toward the space where I was standing. Too late to stop the spell, but not too late to see. My master saw me escape. Our eyes met across the chamber, my 2, its 11. And in that moment, I saw something I had never seen before. Not rage, not surprise, recognition. As if it had been expecting this, as if it had known all along. Then the teleportation took me, and I was gone. 14 years have passed. When I finally saw a mirror after my escape, I didn't recognize myself. My hair had gone white. My hands shook constantly. They still do. I was 31 years old. I looked 60. 11 years under the gaze of an eye tyrant. That's what it costs. The first year of freedom was the hardest. I couldn't sleep in darkness. I kept seeing eye stalks in the shadows. I couldn't eat in silence. The absence of sound reminded me of the lair. I flinched at every sudden movement, expecting a ray to burn through my chest. I drank heavily for 6 months, tried to forget. You can't forget something that's carved into your bones. Eventually, I learned to function. Found work as a translator, the one skill the lair had given me. Lived in cities where I could disappear into crowds, changed names, changed appearances, survived. I check windows before I enter a room now. Count the exits, note which patrons carry weapons. Identify the fastest route to the door. I do this everywhere. Every room, every tavern, every street. I don't remember the first time I did it. I only noticed when I couldn't stop. Sometimes I wonder whose habits these really are. It didn't let me escape. I understand that now. The timing was too perfect. The blind spot too convenient. 3 years of planning, and my master, a creature that notices dust particles, that reacts to coughs, that monitors 17 escape routes it never uses, somehow missed a hollowed-out book in its own library. No, it saw everything. It always sees everything. I've been tracking my master, from a distance, through intermediaries, through rumor and fear. It has expanded its lair, acquired more knowledge, killed more rivals, and it has been asking questions. Questions about scholars from Silvery Moon. Questions about translators who specialize in planar texts. Questions about servants who disappeared. Questions about me. Not hunting questions. Not, where is he questions. Strategic questions. What has he learned? Who has he spoken to? What does he know that might be useful? I used to think I was clever. Used to think 3 years of planning had outsmarted something ancient and brilliant. I was a fool. Beholders play long games. They scheme across centuries. They plant seeds that won't bloom for generations. I've heard stories of beholders manipulating entire kingdoms through proxies, crime lords in Waterdeep, shadow councils in Baldur's Gate, all answering, unknowingly, to an eye that watches from the darkness. They don't need to conquer. They just need to arrange things, move pieces, position assets, assets like me. I wasn't released as mercy. I was released as investment. Somewhere my master has a use for me, a plan I can't see. a purpose I don't understand. I've spent 14 years running, hiding, building a new life. What if that's exactly what it wanted? What if everything I've learned, everyone I've met, every place I've been, what if all of it serves some design I can't perceive? And when the time comes, when I've served whatever function it designed for me, it will collect what it's owed. They say knowledge is power. They're wrong. Knowledge is a leash. I know too much about beholders now. How they think, how they dream, how they hunt. This knowledge keeps me alive, but it also keeps me running. I can't unknow what I know. I can't stop watching the shadows. I can't stop wondering when it will finally come for me. Right now, somewhere beneath the earth, something perfect and waiting is resting. Its mind is drifting. Dreams are forming. Reality bends around thoughts I cannot imagine. And somewhere in those dreams, I think there might be a scholar, a servant who ran, a loose thread that needs to be tied off, or used, or both. Beholders dream other beholders into existence. They dream death kisses and nightmares without names. But they dream other things too. They dream of prey. They dream of servants. They dream of everyone who ever escaped them. And sometimes when I wake in the darkness, I'm not certain I'm still real. Not certain I haven't become something dreamed, something designed, something crafted to walk into exactly the trap my master has been building for 14 patient years. You asked me about beholders, about what it's like to face an eye tyrant. Here is my answer. You don't face a beholder. Don't fight one. Don't defeat one. You survive one. If you're lucky, if you're useful, if it has some reason to keep you alive. And even then, you don't truly leave. You carry it with you, in the way your hands never stop shaking, in the way you check every shadow, in the way you wake at night, certain that something is watching. That's what it's like. That's what I am now. Every night when I close my eyes, I see those 11 eyes turning toward me. Feel the anti-magic cones sweeping across my skin. Wonder if tonight is the night the dream finally catches up. Somewhere beneath the world, my master is resting. Its mind is drifting, and I don't know what it's dreaming of, but I think sometimes it might be dreaming of you. Sleep well.